So we'll start out here, and we can see we have access to all the sustainability goals, and we can pick any one we'd like, but I'd like to focus in on affordable and clean energy, because affordable and clean energy cuts across all the other sustainability goals. And we have access to electricity, and particularly electricity generated through renewable sources. That helps you with every single other sustainability goal. We can see that certain countries have lower access to electricity, and actually we get a very nice pop-up here where we can really bring that visual and make impact with it. When we look at air pollution and the number of deaths from air pollution, we can see there's a bit of a correlation between not having access to electricity and air pollution, of course, because those deaths result from people burning in the home for cooking and light, which increases the chance of having complications. And that disproportionately affects women around the world. When we look at the generation of renewable energies, Iceland and Norway are clearly leading the globe in this, with between 25 and 30% of their energy, and then everyone else is quite a bit lower. Shifting gears, we'll look at climate action, and the first thing is really understanding what's happening with the climate. And this tree ring chart makes a huge difference here. You can see how the globe and our temperatures are increasing over time. While they do increase and decrease from year to year, clearly they've been increasing over time over the last 150 years or so. The key to tackling that is that there's a connection between the GDP per capita and the amount of consumption of CO2. And the emissions that are put off per capita. So if we can break that correlation, that's really key. And if we look at how that's been changing over time, there is an opportunity here for some optimism, because the slope of the line is decreasing. If we get that slope of the line close to zero, that means, or even negative, that would mean that the more GDP per capita you have, the less emissions per capita you're producing. Now, we don't have to just, with Qlik, use predetermined and pre-configured visualizations. We can ask a question at any time. Maybe we want to look into solar power, and we can say, which country produces the most solar? And when we do that, Insight Advisor will go out and create visualizations that never existed before and generate them for us. We get some natural language on the right-hand side explaining what's the answer to our question, and multiple visualizations. It's also done completely in the context of what I was looking at. So I was looking at 2018. If I remove that context, all my visuals update as well. I get an interesting thing back here, is that my number one country is actually the null country, and that means we know there's solar power being produced, but we're not sure which country. It's actually a reporting challenge that we have with the data, and that's a great highlight of needing to make sure our data pipelines are robust, but we don't want to hide that from the user. And ultimately, if we look at the map here, we can see that Africa has no solar power. Anecdotally, we know there's quite a bit of solar power coming out of Africa. So that highlights again that we're missing insights here, and we know to investigate further in terms of our data quality. In Qlik, we've simplified authoring to give you everything you need to be oriented on what you're looking at. We give you tables down at the bottom which understand the base level of data that you have and what the content is of it. All of your fields are displayed for you, and we have master items as well on the left-hand side, which are pre-configured dimensions and measures for use and reuse. Simply drag and drop on, and you can start to build in a familiar way. Of course, Qlik picks for you the best visualization for the combination of dimensions and measures, considering both the data as well as the particular dimensions and measures that are selected. If you drag something on and you don't like the visualization being chosen, for example here, I think a stacked bar chart would be better. I can change that, and of course I can change other properties like sorting and labeling and so forth. Everything is always interactive when you're working with it, so I can make selections and move out that null there. But it doesn't end here. There's not just one way to create in Qlik, because there's often different frames of reference and mindsets you're coming from. Sometimes you know the types of analysis you want to do, but maybe you don't know how to quite build it, or you're not sure what the best analysis to do. So we have analysis types here, which are pre-configured ways of guiding you through different analysis, whether you want to do a trend over time, process control, mutual information, or a clustering analysis. You're then guided through, and what we're going to do is we're going to look for clusters of countries who have similar emissions of CO2, but also have similar amounts of renewable power output. because they're peers with each other. And that gets generated for me, all the information that is needed done to generate that analysis. I also get some natural language output, of course. I can filter and focus in on things right away here. And I actually get some interesting bedfellows when I look at this. So for example, the Netherlands, Malaysia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates are all in a single cluster together. I can add that to my sheet, and I'm well on my way using two different approaches to building out my dashboard. Now, of course, at any time, I can also just ask a question, and I can ask something pretty sophisticated, like, what's my regional consumption between 2008 and 2018 of CO2? I get back a line chart, lower down as expected, but I also get back something I probably wouldn't have thought of to build myself, which is a waterfall chart. And I can see how the various regions are contributing to the increased amount of CO2 over time. It's, of course, in the context that I was looking at. If I clear out my selections, that updates as well. And we can see that Asia is contributing the largest to our increase of CO2. So if we want to help all ourselves, we need to enable Asia to reduce its increase in CO2, and like the Americas and Europe have done. And I think a good thing to point out here is the Americas and Europe are a big consumer of goods from Asia. So this isn't just an Asia problem. This is a global challenge. So we can add that to the sheet as well. But we can do a whole lot more with this. Qlik is always prompting you to look at more, to do more with your data. And here I have an additional analyses to explore, which is a period change analysis. And what Insight Advisor has done here is it's gone out and it's created an entire dashboard for me based on this regional consumption over time question. And I can create that, I can add that sheet to my saved sheets. So now I have this dashboard, which we've built out together using various techniques. And I also have this entire sheet that's built out to me. Now, when I want to share the information, it's as simple as going into storytelling. And in storytelling, I can have a nice slide view where I have entire dashboards which are fully interactive, as well as I can have snapshots which focus in on particular insights I've had that I want to share with others. So that's how easy it is to create using multiple approaches in Qlik, depending on your frame of reference, what you're trying to do, and what your question is at hand. There's hundreds of different data sources you can connect to with Qlik. You can also just drag and drop content. But what you really want to do is work harder, not smarter. And that's why our catalog is set up with all your content in it that you can just search and find what you're looking for. So here we are, we found our SDG indicators, and we're going to open that up and we can get an understanding of the metadata there, get a better understanding of this is the data that we're looking for. If we want to increase our trust, we can look at the full lineage of the data, and this does lineage of the entire data set and can do it for Qlik properties as well as data going to other places, such as Tableau and Power BI. We're truly agnostic. What I'm just clicking through here is I'm looking and seeing where the country field came from, and there's the geo area name, and I can see there's a direct line across that goes to country and straight into country there. And that helps me understand where the data came from and the base level. So if I'm happy with that, all I need to do is just create my analytical app, and it will load the data in and make it ready for me. Once the data is loaded in, I'm prompted to go to my sheet, but I of course can add more data from the catalog or from other sources as needed. We'll add electricity generation in here, and we'll load that in. Now, when we bring data together in Qlik, we don't bring it together with joins. Joins inherently need to be pick inner or outer joins and so forth. But what we do is we actually do association. So that brings all the data together, never leaves any behind, and we use Insight Advisor to help us make those joins if needed. And here it's done it figuring out the fields. I can also change the data around. For example, here I want to put this into buckets. So I'm selecting on the fossil fuels from electricity for buckets, and I'm even getting a little bit of data literacy here saying, hey, some of my buckets have null values. This isn't the ideal thing to do, but yeah, let's just move on and do it anyway. But we did learn something. I can then select, I want to have, low and high. We can just put those in really quickly here. And just in a moment or two here, after a few clicks, I now have those buckets created for me, and they can be used. Then I just simply load the data in, and that's all it takes. Now, just to take you back to what it's going to look like in the end, well, we loaded in the renewable, nuclear, and fossil fuels, and we can chart those really quickly using the techniques we looked in the previous. And the interesting thing here is we see some great insights. Like Germany here is increasing its use of renewables, but it's doing it at the expense of nuclear and not reducing its fossil fuel consumption. So while that is good to use more renewables, perhaps we should be looking at removing the stigma from nuclear and putting that stigma onto fossil fuels, because that may move us further forward in terms of making our climate and our environment better. So that's a quick way of how you can load data into Qlik. You don't need to leave any data behind. You can find things quickly in the catalog, and you can fully understand the lineage of everything in Qlik and outside of Qlik using our catalog. Thank you. With Qlik, it's really easy to inform yourself and others about changes in your data and ultimately drive data-driven action. So here I'm going to create an alert, and these are all data-driven alerts. So this isn't a query-based alert that is restricted to just the dimensions and measures or the query in my visualization. What it does is it allows me to use anything I'd like. And I'm now looking at the changes in temperature over time. Now I want this alert to trigger, but I don't want to trigger just on an arbitrary value. I want to use advanced statistical functions like standard deviation. And when I see more than 3 standard deviations of temperature change, that's what's going to trigger this alert, and it's going to list all of the times that happened. I can subscribe for myself as well as others, and then I just create that alert and it will run as needed. Now maybe I want more than an alert, and what I'm actually looking for is some visualization to have a PDF delivered to me, and I can take a multi-sheet report, so I can pick as many sheets as I'd like, and I can set when I would like to receive that, maybe on a monthly schedule perhaps. And again, I can add myself and more users to that, and they will receive it on that schedule. So this is self-service reporting and alerting, and I, of course, can manage all those subscriptions myself because, as I said, this is self-service. And there they all there where I can manage them. We can take this to a much more robust level, though, with application automation. So here we're bringing the various cloud assets that I'm using, all the different applications, and connecting them together using APIs with a simple drag and drop format. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm informing my comms team on insights we're finding and then suggesting new campaigns they could put out to communicate about the insights from the SDGs. So I go through the data and I look for those. I update Snowflake with new records about what we're doing and build an entire report using Qlik. That then also runs some additional jobs in UiPath for more insights, and if there's any issues, I get notified in Microsoft Teams. And then it all goes into a ServiceNow ticket because that's the tool that our communications teams use to decide on all the communication planning that they're doing. When that runs, the communications team, it's actually interesting that it's not a huge difference for them because all they see is they just see new tasks that appear inside the familiar interface for them inside ServiceNow. But these are data-driven tasks using application automation and Qlik analytics to drive that back end and connecting that end-to-end workflow. So what I'm going to show you is how you can create closed-loop decision-making with end-to-end data analytics workflows with Qlik. I'm starting here in Qlik AutoML, and I'm going to look at some churn data, and I want to figure out why my customers are churning. So I just target it on that, and I run my experiment. And Qlik's now going out and it's going to find the best algorithms for me to predict churn. And once that's done, it's picked a winner. It's also given me a whole lot of information about why this particular model works best, including my SHAP importance, which tells me plan type is the biggest driver. I can then take this information and I can deploy it, and I also am going to deploy the API as well, so I can use it wherever I'd like. So here I am, and I've taken the Qlik analytics, I've embedded my visualizations into ServiceNow with an embedded dashboard, and I get a whole bunch of information about my various customers and that might be churning. And of course, a lot of organizations can do this, but where Qlik really differentiates is what I have here, which I can take action. So I have this customer is identified who has a 36% chance of churning, and it's now using those APIs with Qlik AutoML, and it's giving me the reasons that it's churning and then giving me predictions about it. I can run this simulation that's going to go out and it's going to take all those factors and optimize for me what the best approach would be to reduce this customer's churn to the bare minimum possible. So here we've moved the customer between plans, and we've actually raised their plan price as well a little bit. Now we know though the reality is you can't just go to a customer and be like, we're moving you from A to B and you have no choice in it. So what we also can do when we're talking with the customer and communicating with them, we can talk to them about other things. Like maybe they want something else in their plan. I can say, well, I can raise your plan price a little bit, maybe to $38. And look at that. I actually haven't increased their churn very much from a 6% to 7%. It's still a massive reduction from 36%. And I'm actually in a much better place. I'm happy with that. So the next thing is we actually need to take action on this, and I can run a business process automation. This is using application automation, and it's creating a ServiceNow ticket. It's going to update teams so that everyone's aware of what the change we're making with this customer, and it's going to update all these predictions to Salesforce so we can manage the customer better. We can see that in action right here. As I am already in ServiceNow, I can look at my list of cases. And I open up that particular case here that was just created for me, and I can see that the account needs to be updated, and it actually even giving the reason, and it's pulled that data out and saying we're going to reduce the churn from 36% probability down to a 7% probability with that change. So this is an end-to-end flow which is taking analytics and putting it right into the business processes that we're already running and informing them with data, enabling the flexibility of humans to get involved in that, change factors, and get new predictions back out. So ultimately becoming a fully data-driven organization with an end-to-end closed-loop decision making.